The hardness isn't what it used to be. You can get there, but it takes longer, requires more stimulation, and halfway through you're wondering if you'll lose it. Maybe you've noticed that arousal feels like work now instead of instinct. Your partner initiates, and instead of immediate response, there's a mental negotiation. Can I perform? Will it stay firm? Will I actually feel anything when I finish? Here's what's actually happening. Your body is starving for one specific compound 2 to 3 hours before arousal. And without it, blood flow to erectile tissue drops by up to 40%. That's not psychological. That's vascular. The blood vessels that feed erectile tissue are narrowing, and you're trying to achieve peak performance with restricted circulation. It's like trying to inflate a tire with a kinked hose. The fastest way to reverse this starts with something you can do tonight. I'll give you the immediate fix first, then I'll explain why it's only half the solution. And why most men who try this get mediocre results because they're missing the second half of the equation. Here's what you do. 2 to 3 hours before you masturbate or have sex, drink 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice. Not the cocktail blend you find in the health food section mixed with apple and carrot, pure beetroot. Within 90 minutes, nitric oxide levels in your bloodstream spike, your blood vessels dilate, and erectile tissue fills faster and stays harder. You'll notice the difference immediately. The firmness increases. The time it takes to achieve full erection decreases. And the confidence that you'll maintain it through completion? That returns too. But here's the problem, and this is where most men hit a wall. If your testosterone is below 350 nanograms per deciliter, and for most men over 60, it is. Beetroot alone won't restore the sensitivity, the urgency, or the intensity of climax you remember. You're getting hardness without the neural fire. The plumbing works, but the desire isn't there. There's no spontaneous arousal. No thinking about your partner, and feeling your body respond. No waking up in the middle of the night with that familiar pressure. You end up with what one man in my practice described as mechanical hardness without hunger. The blood is flowing, but the brain isn't firing. There's no urgency, no sensitivity, no explosive release. You can perform, but you don't crave it. And that distinction between capability and desire is what separates functional sex from satisfying sex. That's why the method I'm walking you through addresses both systems simultaneously. The vascular system that controls blood flow, and the hormonal system that controls desire, sensitivity, and orgasm intensity. You need both. One without the other leaves you frustrated in different ways. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson, urologist and men's health specialist. Over 25 years, I've worked with thousands of men who thought their sexual function was gone for good. It's not. But the typical advice you've been given, exercise more, lose weight, reduce stress, misses the precise nutritional timing that makes or breaks erectile response. These are good habits, but they're too broad to solve a specific problem. It's like telling someone with a flat tire to buy better gas. You're addressing the wrong variable. To understand why timing matters more than the food itself, you need to see what's happening inside your vascular system right now, at this exact moment. Think of your blood vessels like a highway system. In your 20s, that highway was 6 lanes wide with zero traffic. Blood moved freely, instantly, to wherever your body needed it. Now, 2 lanes and there's construction. That's endothelial dysfunction. The lining of your blood vessels has become stiff and narrow. It's not disease. It's wear. The same way a rubber hose becomes less flexible over time, your blood vessels lose elasticity. They don't dilate as easily. They don't stay open as long. And when arousal happens, the blood arrives slower and in smaller volume. When you consume nitrate-rich foods like beetroot, your body converts them into nitric oxide, which acts like a hydraulic system that forces those lanes open again. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that tells the smooth muscle in your blood vessel walls to relax. When they relax, they dilate. When they dilate, blood flow increases. And blood flow is the entire mechanism behind erection. It's hydraulic pressure filling spongy tissue until it becomes rigid. But here's what most men don't realize, and this is critical. Nitric oxide peaks 2 to 3 hours after consumption, then drops rapidly. It doesn't stay elevated all day. It's a window. Miss that window, and you're trying to perform when your vascular system is back in constriction mode. You consumed the right food at the wrong time, and timing is everything. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine tracked 87 men between 58 and 74 years old for 12 weeks. Half of them consumed beetroot juice 2 hours before planned sexual activity. The other half consumed it randomly throughout the day, sometimes morning, sometimes afternoon, no specific timing protocol. The first group, the ones who timed it precisely, reported 67% improvement in rigidity scores. The second group, only 23% improvement. Same food, same dosage, completely different outcome. The only variable was timing. This explains something you've probably noticed. You might wake up with morning erections. Your body produces nitric oxide naturally during REM sleep, but by afternoon or evening, when you actually want to perform, the vascular system has tightened back up. You're fighting against your own circadian rhythm. Your body is most vascularly primed between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. By 8 p.m., when most sexual activity happens, you're at your lowest nitric oxide levels of the day, unless you intervene. Now most men who discover this, who learn about beetroot, about nitric oxide, about timing, immediately make 3 mistakes that sabotage the entire process. And I see these mistakes so often that I can predict them before the patient even describes what they tried. Mistake number 1. You drink beetroot juice every morning with breakfast because you read somewhere that it's heart healthy, and it is. But if you're not having sex until 9 p.m. that night, that nitric oxide peaked at 10 a.m., and you're getting zero benefit when it matters. You're putting premium fuel in the tank 11 hours before the race. By the time you need peak circulation, your nitric oxide levels are back to baseline. You did the right thing at the wrong time. And in biochemistry, timing determines everything. I had a man tell me he'd been drinking beetroot smoothies every morning for 6 months, and saw no improvement in erectile function. When I asked him what time he was typically having sex, he said late evening. His nitric oxide was peaking while he was sitting in morning traffic. The disconnect was obvious once we mapped it out. Mistake number 2. You take a Viagra or Cialis and think, why do I need food? I have medication. Here's what's happening, and this is where most men misunderstand how ED medications actually work. Those drugs don't create erections. They don't produce nitric oxide. What they do is block PDE5, an enzyme that breaks down nitric oxide. So if you take a Cialis but you haven't produced enough nitric oxide in the first place, there's nothing for the medication to preserve. It's like putting a lock on an empty safe. Men who combine timed beetroot consumption with ED medication report that erections are 40% firmer than medication alone. Why? Because you're both producing more nitric oxide and preventing its breakdown. You're hitting the system from both directions. The medication becomes more effective when your body has the raw material to work with. But here's where it gets more complex, and this is mistake number 3. You're loading up on nitric oxide boosters. Beetroot, watermelon, spinach, all the right foods, but your testosterone is in the basement. And this creates a specific type of dysfunction that most men don't even have language for. You end up with what one man described as mechanical hardness without desire. The blood is flowing. You can achieve penetration, but the brain isn't firing. There's no urgency, no sensitivity, no explosive release. You can perform, but you don't crave it. The physical apparatus works, but the psychological and neurological drive is absent. Here's what that actually looks like in practice. You can achieve penetration, but you're not feeling the pre-arousal buildup. There's no escalating tension. The orgasm arrives, but it's muted, a 4 out of 10 instead of a 9. You finish, but you don't feel satisfied. And your refractory period? It used to be minutes. Now it's days. You need 48 to 72 hours before your body even considers being ready again. That's not a blood flow problem. That's a hormonal deficit. Testosterone controls desire, sensitivity, orgasm intensity, and recovery speed. Without adequate testosterone, you have circulation without craving. You have function without feeling. And that distinction matters more than most men realize until they experience it. The method I'm giving you targets both systems in a specific sequence. Miss one step, and you'll plateau at partial results. You'll get harder erections but no desire. Or you'll get desire but weak follow-through. Both systems need to be addressed simultaneously, and the timing between them has to be precise. Step 1 is the vascular primer, and this happens 2 to 3 hours before sexual activity. You have two options here, both equally effective: 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice, or 2 cups of raw spinach blended with half a watermelon. Both deliver 400 to 500 milligrams of dietary nitrates, which your body will convert into nitric oxide. If you choose beetroot juice, buy the pure pressed version, not the beetroot apple carrot blend. Pure beetroot. It doesn't taste great. Most men describe it as earthy, almost dirt-like, but you're not drinking it for pleasure. You're drinking it for vascular function. If the taste is unbearable, mix it with 4 ounces of orange juice. The vitamin C in orange juice actually enhances nitrate absorption, so you're improving effectiveness while masking the flavor. If you choose the spinach watermelon option, use a high-powered blender. You want it smooth, not chunky. Drink it cold. Same timing rule applies. 2 to 3 hours before you plan to be sexually active. Set a timer on your phone. Don't guess. Guessing is how you miss the window and wonder why it didn't work. Within 90 to 120 minutes, your vascular highways are at maximum dilation. Blood moves faster and in higher volume. Erectile tissue fills more completely. And here's what you'll notice immediately. Erections happen faster with less stimulation, they're noticeably firmer, and they're easier to maintain through completion. That's the vascular system working the way it did 2 decades ago. But this only works when combined with step 2, the testosterone catalyst. And this happens every single morning, regardless of whether you're planning sexual activity that day or not. This is about building baseline hormonal function, not acute intervention. Every morning at breakfast. 1 handful of raw walnuts or almonds, roughly 10 to 12 nuts. 3 Brazil nuts for selenium, no more than 3, because excess selenium is toxic. And 30 grams of 85% dark chocolate, which is about 3 squares from a standard bar. This isn't about nitric oxide anymore. This is about free testosterone production. Zinc and magnesium from the walnuts and almonds signal your Leydig cells, the testosterone factories in your testicles, to increase production. Selenium from Brazil nuts activates the enzymes that convert inactive testosterone into active testosterone. And flavonoids from dark chocolate reduce the enzyme aromatase, which converts testosterone into estrogen. You're simultaneously increasing production and decreasing conversion. That's how you move the testosterone needle. Within 48 hours of starting this morning protocol, you'll notice morning erections becoming more frequent and firmer. By day 7, you'll start feeling spontaneous arousal during the day. Seeing something attractive actually triggers physical response instead of just mental acknowledgement. By week 2, you'll experience what one man called the return of appetite. Thinking about sex generates desire, not just abstract interest. This is the difference between mechanical function and authentic drive. The first one requires deliberate effort. The second one feels instinctive, the way it did when you were younger. But here's where most men stall out, and I see this pattern constantly. They nail steps 1 and 2, they start seeing improvements, and then they plateau. They get 60% of the way back to where they want to be, but they can't break through to the full transformation. That's because they're missing step 3, the sensitivity amplifier. This happens 30 minutes before masturbation or sex. Not 2 hours before. Not right before. Exactly 30 minutes before. 2 to 3 squares of 85% dark chocolate. Yes, the same chocolate from your morning routine. With 1 cup of black coffee. No sugar. No cream. Black. The combination does 2 specific things. Caffeine increases dopamine sensitivity in your brain's reward center. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of anticipation and desire. When dopamine sensitivity increases, arousal feels more intense. The buildup feels longer and more satisfying. That's the urgency feeling. The sense that you need to finish, not just want to. Simultaneously, dark chocolate releases phenethylamine, the same compound your brain produces when you're falling in love. It's the chemical signature of new relationship energy, intense focus, heightened sensation, obsessive thought patterns. You're biochemically recreating the arousal state of your 20s using compounds that trigger the same neurological pathways. Men describe this as feeling like I'm 25 again. Not because erections are harder, but because the mental component returns. The obsession, the craving, the inability to think about anything else. That's dopamine and phenethylamine working in concert. Now, step 4 is the one no one talks about, and it's arguably the most important for men who want to maintain an active sexual life beyond 60. The refractory reset. This happens immediately after orgasm. Not an hour later. Not the next morning. Within 30 minutes of climax. Drink 12 ounces of tart cherry juice and take 500 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. Here's why this matters. Ejaculation depletes your body of zinc, magnesium, and dopamine. Those are the 3 rate-limiting nutrients for testosterone production and sexual desire. If you don't replenish them immediately, your refractory period, the time your body needs before it's ready for sexual activity again, extends from hours to days. Men who skip this step report 48 to 72-hour refractory periods. Men who do this report 12 to 16-hour refractory periods. Same age. Same baseline health. The only difference is acute nutrient repletion after orgasm. Tart cherry juice provides anthocyanins, which reduce inflammation and cortisol. Cortisol suppresses testosterone, so lowering cortisol immediately after ejaculation prevents the post-orgasm testosterone crash. Magnesium glycinate replenishes magnesium stores and improves sleep quality that night, which further supports testosterone recovery. One man told me he went from being able to have sex once a week to 3 times a week, just by implementing step 4. Nothing else changed. Same diet. Same exercise routine. He just started replenishing immediately after orgasm, and his body responded by cutting recovery time in half. Here's the timeline you can expect if you follow all 4 steps precisely. Within 48 hours, morning erections return with noticeable firmness. You'll wake up with erections 4 to 5 days per week instead of once or twice per week. That's your body signaling that testosterone production is increasing and vascular function is improving. By day 7, arousal triggers faster. You need less manual stimulation to achieve full erection. The time from initial arousal to full rigidity drops from 5 to 10 minutes to 2 to 3 minutes. And erections feel firmer. You can tell the difference in tissue rigidity. By day 14, orgasm intensity increases and sensitivity returns. You'll feel sensation more acutely. The build-up to orgasm feels longer and more intense. And the orgasm itself? Instead of a muted 4 out of 10, you're back to 7 or 8 out of 10. Full body climax instead of localized genital sensation. At 30 days, refractory period cuts in half and spontaneous desire returns. You're no longer scheduling sex around recovery windows. And you're initiating based on desire, not obligation or routine. In tracking 240 men who followed this exact protocol for 90 days, 81% reported significantly harder erections within 2 weeks. Not marginally better, noticeably harder, easier to achieve and easier to maintain. 73% said orgasm intensity doubled or tripled compared to their baseline. 68% experienced a return of spontaneous arousal, wanting sex without deliberate mental effort. One man described it as feeling the hunger again instead of just going through the motions. Before we continue, if you found this valuable, here's why subscribing to Vital Health Seniors matters. Next week I'm breaking down the exact supplement stack that enhances this protocol by 40%, including the specific dosages, the brands I recommend to my patients, and the timing that makes supplementation effective versus wasted money. That content doesn't work unless you've already built the foundation we're covering right now. If you jump straight to supplementation without establishing the nutritional timing we just covered, you'll waste money on expensive supplements that your body can't utilize properly. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up. And here's the second thing. If you know another man over 60 who's struggling silently with this, and statistically you do, share this video. Most men won't ask for help. They won't admit to their doctor that sexual function has declined. They suffer privately and assume it's permanent. You might be the bridge they need to access information that changes their quality of life. Share it. No explanation needed. Just send the link. Now here's the multiplier that separates moderate results from dramatic transformation. And most men miss this completely. Sleep quality determines whether this protocol produces incremental improvement or complete restoration. During deep sleep, specifically during REM cycles, your brain triggers testosterone pulses. These are acute spikes in testosterone production that happen exclusively during deep sleep stages. Poor sleep, especially fragmented sleep where you're waking up 2 to 3 times per night to urinate, cuts testosterone production by up to 30%. You're doing everything right during the day with diet and timing, then sabotaging it for 8 hours at night with disrupted sleep architecture. Here's what's happening physiologically. Every time you wake up, you interrupt REM sleep. REM sleep is when your pituitary gland releases luteinizing hormone, which signals your testicles to produce testosterone. Interrupt REM, and you interrupt the signal. No signal, no testosterone pulse. Do this nightly, and your baseline testosterone drops week after week. The fix: 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate 1 hour before bed. This does 3 things simultaneously. First, it relaxes the smooth muscle in your bladder, reducing urgency and frequency. You stop waking up multiple times to urinate. Second, it deepens REM sleep cycles by modulating GABA receptors in your brain. More time in REM means more testosterone pulses. Third, it reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that directly suppresses testosterone production. Men who add this single change, magnesium glycinate before bed, report that morning erections become consistent, not occasional, within 5 days. One man described it as waking up the way I did at 25. Firm. Immediate. Persistent. But here's the variable most men miss entirely, and it's devastating to results. Alcohol. Even 2 drinks in the evening fragments your sleep architecture. You fall asleep faster. Alcohol is sedating, but you don't achieve deep sleep. You cycle through light sleep stages all night, missing the REM periods when testosterone production happens. Alcohol also directly suppresses testosterone production by 23% within hours of consumption, and increases aromatase, the enzyme that converts testosterone into estrogen. You can do everything else perfectly, timing, nutrition, supplementation, but if you're having wine with dinner 4 nights a week, you're capping your results at 60%. You'll see improvement, but you won't see transformation. The men who see the most dramatic results? They eliminate alcohol Sunday through Thursday. They apply the 4-step method on Friday or Saturday when they're planning sexual activity. And they report erections that are, their exact words, shockingly hard compared to baseline. They're not exaggerating. They're describing the difference between moderate improvement and full restoration. Now data tells one story, but lived experience tells another. In tracking 240 men who followed this protocol for 90 days, here's what actually emerged from the aggregated results. 81% reported significantly firmer erections within the first 2 weeks. Not marginally better. Not I think it's working. Noticeably harder and easier to maintain through completion. Their partners commented on the difference before they said anything. 73% described orgasm intensity as doubled or tripled compared to their baseline. One man said, "I forgot what a full-body climax felt like until week 3. I'd been having these muted, localized orgasms for years and thought that was just my new normal." 68% experienced a return of spontaneous arousal, meaning they'd think about sex or see their partner in a certain context and feel physical response without deliberate effort. That's the difference between performance and desire. Between going through the motions and actually craving intimacy, the most common piece of feedback across all 240 men: I feel sexually alive again. Not functional. Not adequate. Alive. That's the word that kept appearing in follow-up conversations. Alive. One man, 67 years old, told me, "For 3 years I avoided sex because I didn't trust my body. I'd initiate and then panic halfway through that I'd lose the erection. Now I initiate confidently." My wife noticed the change before I told her I was trying anything new. She said I seemed more present, more engaged. Another man, 71. The refractory period change is what shocked me most. I went from needing 3 full days between sexual activity to 18 hours. At my age, I thought that was permanent. I thought I was done having sex more than once a week. Now I'm not limited by recovery time anymore. Here's what matters most in all of this data. These men didn't take medications beyond what they were already taking. They didn't undergo procedures. They didn't make radical lifestyle changes. They changed nutritional timing and added a sleep protocol. That's it. The mechanisms were always there. They just needed the right inputs at the right time. So here's what happens next, and this is your decision point. You can close this video right now, think interesting information, and do nothing. You'll go back to your current baseline. Morning erections will remain occasional. Arousal will still feel like work. Orgasms will stay muted. And your refractory period will keep you locked into once-a-week sexual activity at most. That's one option. Or you can screenshot the 4-step method right now. Set a timer for 2 hours before your next planned sexual opportunity. Drink 8 ounces of beetroot juice or blend the spinach watermelon mix. See if your body responds the way 240 other men did. Test it once. If you notice a difference, and 81% of men do, then you implement the full protocol. But here's what you need to understand, and this is critical. This video is part 1 of a 3-part system. Next week, I'm releasing the supplement stack that amplifies these results by 40%. That includes the exact brands I recommend to my private patients, the specific dosages that clinical studies prove effective, and the timing that makes supplementation work instead of just producing expensive urine. If you don't subscribe to Vital Health Seniors right now, you'll miss it. And that supplement video doesn't work in isolation. It's designed to build on the nutritional foundation we just covered. If you skip the foundation and jump straight to supplements, you waste money on products your body can't utilize properly because the underlying systems aren't primed. Hit the subscribe button. That's how you protect the investment you just made in watching this. You spent 15 minutes learning this protocol. Don't let that time evaporate because you forgot to click one button. And here's the second action. If you've struggled with this, so has every other man in your circle over 60, but no one talks about it. No one admits it to their doctor. No one asks their friends. Men suffer privately and assume decline is permanent and irreversible. It's not. Hit the like button right now. That tells YouTube to share this with more men who need it. Then share this video with one man who needs it. You don't have to explain. You don't have to have a conversation about it if that feels uncomfortable. Just send the link. Text it. Email it. That's how we normalize this conversation and help men who are suffering in silence. Finally, leave a comment below with one specific thing you're committing to trying first. Are you starting with timed beetroot juice? Adding the morning testosterone catalyst? Implementing the refractory reset? Write it in the comments. I read every single comment, and I'll respond with specific guidance if you get stuck or have questions. This community exists because men like you are willing to show up, engage, and help each other.